The sun beat down on the festival grounds as I adjusted my sunglasses, taking in the colorful tapestry of tints, stages, and thousands of music lovers spread across the sprawling field. The air buzzed with anticipation, a mixture of excitement and the faint scent of sunscreen, food trucks, and summer. My name is Jamie, and I'd been counting down to this weekend for months. The annual Harmony Fields Music Festival, 3 days of my favorite bands, camping under the stars, and the promise of memories that would last until next year's lineup was announced. I'd saved for months to afford the VIP pass hanging around my neck, sacrificing coffee shop visits and takeout dinners. The plastic credential caught the sunlight as I navigated through the crowd, my well-worn sneakers already dusty from the festival grounds. This year's lineup was particularly special. The Midnight Echoes, Violet Skies, and my absolute favorite, Electric Pulse, whose latest album had been the soundtrack to my life for the past 6 months. Let me explain why this festival meant so much to me. Growing up in a small town where live music was limited to cover bands at the local bar, these 3 days represented freedom, connection, and belonging. Here, surrounded by people who shared my passion for music, I didn't have to explain or justify my enthusiasm. Everyone understood the transformative power of a perfect chorus or a bridge that makes your heart swell. The first day had already exceeded my expectations. I danced until my legs ached during Lunar Tide's set, made friends with a group from Seattle during a water break, and discovered a new band that had me immediately downloading their EP. Festival magic was real, that sense that anything could happen, that the normal rules of life were temporarily suspended in this musical wonderland. By mid-afternoon on the second day, I was in desperate need of water and shade. The merchandise tent beckoned with its promise of both, plus the band shirts I'd been eyeing since the festival app released the designs weeks ago. I joined the line, fanning myself with the crumpled schedule I'd pulled from my pocket, studying the crowd around me. Everyone looked equally sun-kissed and happy, sporting band shirts from previous years, elaborate festival outfits, and the Universal Festival accessory, wristbands collected like trophies. As the line inched forward, I caught sight of one of the volunteers working the merchandise table. Even from a distance, there was something magnetic about him. His movements were confident and fluid as he handled transactions and chatted with fans. His laugh carried over the noise of the crowd, genuine and warm. Dark curls escaped from under a festival cap, and his smile seemed to light up each person he interacted with. I found myself hoping he'd be the one to help me when my turn came. The universe must have been listening because minutes later, I was standing in front of him, suddenly tongue-tied despite having rehearsed my order in my head. "Hi there," he said, those 2 simple words carrying a warmth that caught me off guard. His name tag read Alex, and up close, his eyes were even more striking, a warm brown with flecks of amber that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. "Hey," I managed, trying to sound casual despite the inexplicable flutter in my chest. "Could I get an Electric Pulse shirt? Medium, please. The black one with the lightning design." "Excellent choice," Alex replied, turning to the stacks of shirts behind him. "Their set tomorrow is going to be incredible. Have you seen them live before?" And just like that, we were talking about music, discovering shared favorite songs and concerts we'd both attended. What should have been a 30-second transaction stretched into minutes as the line behind me grew. I was aware I should move along, but Alex seemed in no hurry to end our conversation, asking questions and leaning slightly over the table toward me. "You know what?" he said suddenly, glancing at his fellow volunteer who was handling the growing line with increasing frustration. "I'm due for a break anyway." He turned to his coworker. "Cover for me for 5 minutes." Before I could process what was happening, Alex had lifted the counter flap, stepped out, and gently taken my elbow. "Come with me," he said, his voice low and conspiratorial. My heart raced as I followed him, weaving through the crowd until we reached the back of the massive merchandise tent. "What are we doing?" I asked, equal parts confused and thrilled as he led me behind the tent where stacks of boxes created a makeshift barrier between us and the festival. Alex's smile was mischievous as he leaned against one of the larger boxes. "I couldn't properly talk to you with all those people waiting. They can buy their shirts in a few minutes." This was more important. "More important than doing your volunteer job?" I teased, though I was secretly delighted by his boldness. "Absolutely," he nodded, completely unapologetic. It's not every day you meet someone who can name 3 deep cuts from Electric Pulse's first EP. I had to know more. The space behind the tent felt like another world. The canvas muffled the festival sounds, creating an intimate bubble where the chaos of thousands of music fans felt distant. Sunlight filtered through in dappled patterns, and the ground was surprisingly cool in the shade. I could still hear the distant thump of bass from the main stage, but it felt like Alex and I had discovered a secret dimension within the festival grounds. "So, Jamie," he said, my name sounding special in his voice, "tell me your festival story. First time? Veteran? What brings you to Harmony Fields?" For the next 15 minutes, well beyond the 5 he'd promised his coworker, we talked nonstop. I learned Alex was a music production student volunteering to gain festival experience. He'd grown up in a musical family, could play 4 instruments, and had a playlist for every mood. He gestured when he talked about his favorite albums, his hands painting pictures in the air between us. I told him about my small-town escape, how music had been my lifeline through difficult years, and how I'd traveled 3 states to be here. With each exchange, the space between us seemed to shrink, our shoulders occasionally brushing as we shifted positions. Each contact sent a current of electricity up my arm. "You know what's funny?" Alex said, his voice softer now. "I've been volunteering at festivals for 3 years, and I've never dragged anyone behind a tent before. There's something about you, Jamie. I couldn't let you just buy a shirt and disappear into the crowd." The honesty in his statement made my breath catch. In the real world, I might have overthought this moment, analyzed the implications, worried about making a fool of myself. But this wasn't the real world. This was festival time, where connections formed in fast-forward and 3 days could feel like a lifetime. "I'm glad you did," I admitted, meeting his gaze directly for the first time. "This is already the highlight of my festival." Alex's smile changed then, becoming something more intimate, a private expression meant just for me. He stepped closer, and I could smell the subtle notes of his cologne mingled with sunscreen. "Can I tell you something crazy?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I saw you in line, and I hoped you'd come to my register. I actually let someone go ahead so I could be free when you reached the front." My heart pounded so loudly I was certain he could hear it over the distant music. "That is crazy," I agreed, but I couldn't stop smiling. "And incredibly flattering. I should probably get back before they send a search party," Alex said reluctantly, glancing toward the tent. "But I don't want this to be it. Are you free later? After my shift ends at 7. The question hung between us, full of possibility. This was the moment where festival magic could become something real, where a chance encounter could transform into something more meaningful. I thought about my carefully planned schedule, the bands I'd intended to see, the experiences I'd mapped out. None of them seemed as important as the opportunity standing in front of me. "I'm free," I said, the words carrying more weight than their simplicity suggested. "Where should we meet?" Alex's face lit up with genuine delight. "The big oak tree near the west stage? After violet skies set." I nodded, already anticipating the hours until then. "It's a date." He hesitated for a moment, seeming to debate something internally. Then, with a decisive movement that took my breath away, he leaned forward and brushed his lips against my cheek. "A preview," he murmured, his breath warm against my skin. "For later." Then he was leading me back around the tent, our momentary hideaway already feeling like a shared secret. As we emerged into the sunshine and festival chaos, Alex gave my hand one final squeeze before returning to his post. "Don't forget your shirt," he called with a wink, handing me the Electric Pulse merchandise I'd nearly forgotten was the reason for our meeting. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of music and anticipation. I watched bands I'd been excited about for months, but my mind kept drifting back to those stolen moments behind the merchandise tent. The spot on my cheek where Alex's lips had touched seemed to tingle with remembered sensation. I checked my phone constantly, watching the minutes tick towards 7 o'clock. Violet Skies took the west stage at 5:30, their dreamy indie pop the perfect soundtrack to my swirling emotions. I found myself near the front, swaying with the crowd as the lead singer's ethereal voice washed over us. The sun was beginning its descent, casting a golden glow over the festival grounds and transforming ordinary scenes into magical tableaus. As the final notes of their set faded and the crowd erupted in appreciative cheers, I made my way to the oak tree. It stood majestic and solitary near the edge of the festival grounds, its sprawling branches offering patches of shade to tired festival goers. I arrived early, nervously adjusting my hair and wishing I'd thought to bring a change of clothes. After a full day at a summer festival, I was acutely aware of my less-than-fresh appearance. But then Alex was there, walking toward me with purpose, his volunteer shirt exchanged for a vintage band tee that hugged his shoulders in a way that made my mouth go dry. He'd removed his cap, and his dark curls fell freely, slightly damp as if he'd splashed water on his face before coming to meet me. The sight of him made my heart perform an elaborate gymnastics routine in my chest. "You came," he said, sounding genuinely relieved as he reached me. "Did you think I wouldn't?" I asked, touched by his uncertainty. "I hoped you would," he admitted. "But festival promises are sometimes made in the moment and forgotten when the next band starts playing." "I wouldn't forget," I assured him, meaning it completely. Alex's smile was worth every minute of anticipation. "I have an idea," he said, offering his hand. "Do you trust me?" Without hesitation, I placed my hand in his. "Lead the way." Alex had insider knowledge that proved invaluable. He guided me through the festival using volunteer shortcuts, avoiding the worst of the crowds. We ended up at a small hill overlooking the main stage, where the headline act would perform in an hour. The spot was relatively uncrowded, offering a perfect vantage point without the crush of bodies in the main viewing area. "Staff secret," he explained as we settled on the grass. "Best view in the house, and most people don't realize you can watch from here." The evening air had cooled slightly, bringing relief from the day's heat. As we sat side by side, our shoulders touching, Alex produced a small blanket from his backpack and spread it beneath us. From his seemingly magical bag, he also retrieved 2 bottles of water and a package of cookies he'd snagged from the volunteer tent. "It's not exactly a gourmet picnic," he apologized, "but festival foraging options are limited." "It's perfect," I assured him, genuinely touched by his thoughtfulness. As we shared our makeshift dinner, the conversation flowed effortlessly. We discovered mutual friends in the music scene, debated album rankings, and shared stories of concert disasters and triumphs. With each exchange, the connection between us deepened, transcending the typical surface-level festival friendship. "Can I ask you something personal?" Alex said eventually, his expression turning serious. I nodded, curious about his sudden change in tone. "What's the song that saved your life? The one that found you exactly when you needed it most?" The question caught me off guard with its depth. This wasn't casual festival chat about favorite bands or best performances. This was something more intimate, a glimpse into the way music shaped our emotional landscapes. I thought carefully before answering. There was this Electric Pulse song, actually, Midnight Reverie. It came out during my final year of high school, when I was struggling with coming out and facing a lot of rejection from people I thought were friends. There's this line about finding your own light in the darkness. It became my mantra. I'd play it every morning before school, like armor. Alex's eyes never left mine as I spoke, his attention complete and focused. When I finished, he reached for my hand, his fingers intertwining with mine in a gesture that felt both casual and profound. For me, it was Harbor in the Storm by the Midnight Echoes, he shared. My parents were splitting up, and everything felt like it was falling apart. That song was the only thing that made sense when nothing else did. As darkness fell completely, the festival lights came alive, transforming the grounds into a multicolored wonderland. The headliner's crew was visible on the distant main stage, preparing for the night's final performance. Around us, other festival goers had discovered our secret viewing spot, small groups settling nearby with their own blankets and snacks. In the glow of the festival lights, Alex looked at me with an intensity that made my heart race. "I have a confession," he said, his voice low. "I've been wanting to kiss you properly since you walked up to my merchandise table." The directness of his statement sent a thrill through me. In the real world, I might have hesitated, overthought, analyzed the potential complications. But here, in this magical bubble where normal rules seemed suspended, I found a courage I didn't know I possessed. "What's stopping you?" I asked, surprised by my own boldness. Alex's smile was slow and deliberate as he leaned closer. "Absolutely nothing," he murmured, and then his lips were on mine. The kiss was gentle at first, almost questioning, but quickly deepened as I responded. His hand came up to cup my cheek, and I found myself melting into his touch. Around us, the festival continued, people talking, laughing, music playing in the distance. But in that moment, everything narrowed to the point where we connected. When we finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, the main stage lights suddenly blazed to life, illuminating the night sky in perfect timing. We both laughed at the theatrical coincidence. "The universe approves," Alex said, his arm sliding around my waist as we turned to watch the headliner take the stage. For the next hour and a half, we experienced the music together, sharing headphones when Alex wanted me to hear a specific song from his playlist, dancing without caring who might be watching, stealing kisses between songs. It felt simultaneously like the most natural thing in the world and the most extraordinary. As the final encore ended and the crowd began to disperse, the inevitable question of what happened next hung between us. Festival connections were notorious for their intensity and equally famous for their brevity. 3 days of magic that often evaporated in the real world. "So," Alex said, helping me fold the blanket as people streamed past us toward the campgrounds and parking lots. "Tomorrow's the last day." "It is," I agreed, unsure what to say next. Did he want this to be a festival fling, a perfect memory with no strings attached? Or was he, like me, already wondering if what we'd found could exist beyond these grounds? "I have to work the merchandise tin again in the morning," he continued, "but I'm free from 2 o'clock on. Electric Pulse plays at 4. They're the whole reason I came to the festival," I reminded him. Alex's smile was warm as he took both my hands in his. "Would you want to watch them with me? I know a spot where we can see everything." "Another staff secret?" I teased. "The best one yet," he promised. "And afterward, maybe we could talk about what happens when the festival ends." The question carried weight, acknowledging that we were both thinking beyond the temporary magic of Harmony Fields. I felt a flutter of hope mixed with nervous anticipation. "I'd like that," I said simply, squeezing his hands. Alex walked me back to my campsite, our fingers intertwined, navigating through the maze of tents and temporary structures. When we reached my small setup, he kissed me goodnight with a sweetness that contrasted with our earlier passion, a promise rather than a finale. "Tomorrow," he said, backing away reluctantly. 2 o'clock. The big oak tree again. "I'll be there," I promised, already counting the hours. That night, lying in my sleeping bag with the distant sounds of late-night revelers and quiet music from neighboring tents, I replayed every moment with Alex. In the rational part of my brain, I knew festival romances were intensified by their setting, the music, the freedom, the temporary escape from reality. But there had been something in Alex's eyes when he mentioned, after the festival, that suggested he was thinking the same thing I was. What if this doesn't have to end when the music stops? The final day of Harmony Fields dawned clear and perfect. I spent the morning with the friends I'd made from Seattle, exchanging contact information and promises to meet at next year's festival. But my thoughts were constantly with Alex, wondering what he was doing, if he was thinking of me as he handed out merchandise to eager fans. At 1:30, I couldn't wait any longer. I made my way to the oak tree, settling in its shade to watch the flow of festival goers. The atmosphere had shifted slightly, a bittersweet quality infusing the joy as everyone tried to absorb every last moment of the experience before returning to regular life. I spotted Alex before he saw me. He was jogging slightly, clearly worried about being late, scanning the area around the tree with an intensity that made my heart swell. When his eyes finally landed on me, his entire face transformed with relief and happiness. It was the kind of genuine reaction that couldn't be faked, and it washed away any lingering doubts I had about his interest. "You're early," he said as he reached me, slightly out of breath. "So are you," I pointed out, standing to meet him. Without hesitation, he pulled me into an embrace that felt like coming home, his arms strong and secure around me. "I couldn't wait," he admitted against my hair. "I've been watching the clock all morning." We spent the next hour exploring parts of the festival I hadn't yet discovered. A small acoustic stage hidden in a grove of trees, an art installation that created music from people's movements, a food vendor Alex swore had the best tacos in 3 states. With each new experience shared, the connection between us strengthened, transcending the typical festival flirtation. As 4 o'clock approached, Alex led me to his promised special viewing spot. It turned out to be a small technical platform at the side of the main stage, accessible only to staff and normally used by sound engineers for equipment storage. From this vantage point, we could see both the stage and the massive crowd, experiencing the show from a unique perspective. How did you arrange this? I asked, amazed by the prime location. Alex shrugged, looking pleased with himself. I helped the sound team set up yesterday. They owed me a favor. As Electric Pulse took the stage to deafening cheers, Alex stood behind me, his arms wrapped around my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder. The band launched into their opening number, and the crowd surged with energy. I felt it too. Not just the music, but the perfection of the moment. My favorite band, this beautiful connection, the culmination of the festival experience. When they played Midnight Reverie, the song I told Alex had saved me, he tightened his arms around me in silent understanding. I turned in his embrace, overwhelmed by emotion, and found his eyes already on me, full of something that looked remarkably like falling in love. The kiss we shared then, with Electric Pulse's lyrics about finding light in darkness surrounding us, felt like sealing a promise. Whatever this was between us, it wasn't ending with the festival. As the sun began to set on the final day of Harmony Fields, Electric Pulse finished their set with a spectacular light show that illuminated thousands of upturned faces. Alex and I remained on our platform, reluctant to rejoin the real world that waited beyond the festival gates. So, he said finally, turning to face me fully, about what happens after today. I took a deep breath, preparing for the conversation that would determine if our festival magic could translate to reality. Yes, I live in Portland, he said. I'm finishing my music production degree there. Where are you based? Seattle. I replied, relief washing through me at the relatively close distance. Just a few hours away. Alex's smile was radiant. That's what I was hoping you'd say. Close enough for weekends, far enough to be exciting. Are you asking me to date you beyond the festival gates, Alex? I teased, though my heart was pounding with hope. I'm asking for a chance to see if what we found here is as real as I think it is, he said, suddenly serious. Because I've never felt this kind of connection so quickly, and I'm not ready to write it off as just festival magic. I reached up to touch his face, tracing the features that had become so dear to me in such a short time. Neither am I. As the festival came to its official close, with the final headliner playing the last notes and fireworks illuminating the night sky, Alex and I exchanged phone numbers, social media accounts, and promises to meet the following weekend. We made plans for him to show me his favorite music venues in Portland, for me to introduce him to my friends in Seattle. Walking toward the exit gates, hand in hand amidst the stream of tired but happy festival goers, I reflected on how differently this weekend had turned out than I'd planned. I'd come for the music, for the experience, for the temporary escape. I was leaving with all of that, but also with something unexpected and precious, a connection that had begun behind a merchandise tent when a charismatic volunteer had decided that I was more important than the waiting customers. What are you thinking about? Alex asked, noticing my smile. I'm thinking about how glad I am that you dragged me behind that tent, I told him honestly. Best detour of my life. Alex laughed, the sound already familiar and cherished. I had a feeling about you, Jamie. Sometimes you just have to follow your instincts. As we reached the festival exit, he pulled me close for one more kiss under the Harmony Field sign. See you next weekend? He asked, his eyes full of promise. Absolutely. I agreed, already looking forward to discovering who we could be to each other in the real world. The music might have stopped, but our song was just beginning. Total _char_count. 18,862.